I took a sip of my warm coffee and stared at the garden outside my window. Frost covered the grass and fallen leaves, turning them white in the early winter sun. It was late November in Minnesota, and the cold had come quickly this year. Some colorful autumn leaves still clung to the trees in our yard here in Eden Prairie, but winter had clearly arrived. Another Thanksgiving season was here. Work was good for me. As a senior accountant at a big firm, I was respected and busy. My marriage to David was steady and kind. He always supported me, never complained about my long hours. Life here in this quiet neighborhood felt comfortable. The only part of my life that still felt cold, no matter how warm the coffee or thick my sweater, was my relationship with Mother. Behind me, I heard my husband's voice. "Amy, are you ready?" David stood by the door in his neat suit, suitcase in hand. He looked handsome and serious, as always when he had a big meeting ahead. He worked hard as an executive for a growing tech company. He was a gentle man, patient with my work, patient with my silences, patient even when I pulled away, an easy man to love. I smiled at him. "Yes, I'm fine, don't worry about me." This year, David wouldn't be home for Thanksgiving. He had to fly out for an important meeting that might decide his company's future. I understood. He never put work before family without good reason. "Did you tell your mother?" he asked. "Yes, she wasn't happy." I tried to copy Mother's sharp tone. "I can't believe you're putting work before Thanksgiving dinner." I laughed a little, but inside, that old hurt tugged at me. Mother, Martha Anderson, had always been the queen of our family's world. As an elder at the First Presbyterian Church, she organized charity events and hosted the fanciest gatherings. To her, Thanksgiving wasn't just family time, it was her moment to show off her perfect family to everyone who mattered in town. Appearances were everything to Mother. She loved to talk about our pure bloodline. It was her way of reminding us we came from old money, old land, old church roots. But to me, those words had felt cruel ever since 2 years ago when I lost my baby. I had wanted that baby more than anything, but it slipped away, and when it did, I saw something awful in Mother's eyes, a flash of relief. After that, she only showered more love on Linda's little boy, Tommy. My sister Linda was the perfect daughter in Mother's eyes, a soft-spoken housewife, always at Mother's side, helping at the church, letting Mother's opinions guide how she raised Tommy. Her husband, John, worked hard running a real estate business. He was a good man, but I knew he worried. Linda was acting strange. David placed his warm hand on my shoulder, pulling me back to the moment. "Are you okay?" he asked. I turned to him and smiled again. "I'll be fine. I can handle Mother." David's eyes said he knew what that really meant. He looked guilty for leaving me to deal with her alone, but I just hugged him and kissed his cheek. "I'll be okay. Go do what you need to do." He squeezed my hand, then rolled his suitcase out the door. Cold air blew in for a moment, reminding me tomorrow was Thanksgiving, the day Mother would gather the family under her perfect roof, sit us down at her perfect table, and pretend our family was perfect too. But I knew better. I could feel cracks running under the floorboards. I sighed as I watched David drive away. I turned back inside, my coffee now cold. Tomorrow, Linda would come with John and Tommy. I had noticed how Linda looked at Adam Foster, the new assistant pastor. Adam was young, smooth-talking, and popular with the women at church, especially my sister. Something about the way they whispered at church gatherings had caught my accountant's mind like an unpaid bill. Thanksgiving morning came cold and gray. I drove through the frosty streets, heater on full blast, trying to calm the fluttering in my chest. Mother's house was in one of the richest parts of Eden Prairie, a white house with tall pillars and big windows. It had been in our family for generations. It looked peaceful and beautiful with snow dusting the roof, but my gut twisted as I parked in the driveway. I stepped inside, and Mother's voice found me immediately. She stood in the hallway, wearing her dark blue dress and pearl necklace. Her hair was silver but perfectly done, her makeup flawless. "Is David really not coming?" she asked at once, as if she'd been waiting at the door just to pounce. "No, Mother, it's an important meeting." She clicked her tongue. Young people today always work first, family second. I ignored the sting in her words and slipped into the kitchen, where Aunt Carol and my cousin Jennifer were already arranging side dishes. They smiled at me with that look, half pity, half judgment, they'd worn since my miscarriage. I said hello and helped set the cranberry sauce and rolls. The doorbell rang. Linda arrived with her family. The moment the door opened, Mother rushed to Tommy, scooping him up in her arms. Tommy giggled and called out, "Grandma." Linda smiled with smug pride, like a queen showing off her air. John stood behind them, looking tired, catching my eyes for a brief second, like he wanted to say something but couldn't. The hours before dinner passed in a blur of fake smiles and small talk, gossip about neighbors, chatter about church projects. Mother's voice floated over everyone's heads like a sermon. Linda avoided any mention of Adam. I noticed that, and I filed it away in my mind, like an accountant noting a suspicious entry in a ledger. When dinner was ready, we gathered in the dining room. The table gleamed with fine china and silver candlesticks. The turkey sat in the center, golden brown and steaming. We folded our hands for grace. Mother's voice rang out, smooth, calm, powerful. She thanked God for blessings that felt more like illusions to me. Then came the carving of the turkey, Mother's ritual. As the knife slid through the meat, Aunt Carol turned to me with a sharp smile. Amy, dear, maybe it's time to think about what's really important. Work isn't everything. Jennifer joined in. God gives us hardships for a reason, you know. I stared at my plate, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. I knew what they meant. You lost your baby. You failed. Their pity was worse than anger. Then Mother spoke, too sweet, too sharp. Well, she said lightly, Amy's miscarriage saved us from tainting the family's pure bloodline. A chill went through the room. My fork clattered to my plate, but the rest of them, they laughed. A soft, awkward laugh, but they laughed anyway. Linda smiled wide, petting Tommy's hair. Well, a true grandchild is all Mother needs, she said sweetly. Something cracked in my chest. I pushed my chair back. The noise startled everyone. Mother's eyes widened. Amy, she said, her voice suddenly small. Excuse me. My voice was calm, too calm. I walked out of the dining room, through the hallway, into the living room. I stood at the window and watched the snow fall. My heart was pounding, but outside, everything was quiet and white and clean. After a few minutes, I heard someone behind me. I turned. It was John. His face was pale. He looked over his shoulder, then back at me. Amy. I need your help. I said nothing. I waited. It's Linda, he whispered. Something's not right. She's been seeing Adam Foster, often. I want to get a DNA test for Tommy. I need to know. I looked him in the eye and nodded. I'll help you. Right there, in that living room, I knew the truth would come. My calm, neat family was about to be ripped open, and maybe, finally, we would see what was really inside. And maybe, when the lies were gone, we could start over. 3 days later, I sat at my computer, the snow still falling outside. David was still away on business. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the heater and the sound of my fingers tapping keys. I ordered the DNA kit. John messaged that he'd do the test, too. But I had another plan. I opened the church's financial records. I was an accountant. I knew how to follow numbers like footprints in the snow, and I had a feeling those numbers would lead me straight to the truth. I had full access to the church's accounts, so I dug in quietly. I opened every file, every statement. As I looked closer, I noticed something odd. Ever since Adam Foster had started working at the church, money meant for charity had been slipping away. It wasn't a huge sum, but every month, the same amount went to the same hidden account. It didn't look like an accident. It looked planned. One evening, as I sat at my desk, the glow of my laptop the only light in the room, a voice behind me made my heart jump. Amy, what are you doing? I spun around. Mother stood at the door to my study. Her eyes were sharp, even in the dim light. Just work, Mother, I said, closing the laptop quickly, preparing for the church audit. She nodded slowly, but her eyes stayed on me, reading me like an open book. Your behavior at Thanksgiving dinner was very disrespectful, she said, her voice cold. I wanted to say your words were cruel, but she cut me off. Think about the family's reputation, she went on, especially now that Linda is about to get an important position. I frowned. What position? Assistant Pastor Adam has recommended Linda to be the head of the youth department. My heart sank. That job meant real power in the church. Why Linda? And why did Adam want her there? After she left my study, I opened my laptop again. I switched focus. I began tracking Linda's habits, her credit card bills, her phone calls, her social media posts. I compared all of it to the church's official calendar. It didn't take long to find the pattern. Every Wednesday afternoon, Linda said she had church work, but the church had no record of any meetings then. Then I found the truth that made my breath catch. Linda's card was used every Wednesday at the same small hotel outside Minneapolis. 6 months of secret stays, hidden behind excuses. I called John. When he answered, his voice was tight. "What did you find?" he asked. I told him everything, how Linda's hotel bills matched the money disappearing from the church's charity fund, how Adam's name always floated nearby. John's silence felt heavy through the phone. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. "That's not all, is it?" I closed my eyes for a moment, then I told him about the records I'd found. 5 years ago, when Linda got pregnant, Adam was already around, doing an internship at our church. It all connected. John was quiet, but his breathing told me everything. We didn't need the DNA test now. The truth was here, right in front of us. I didn't stop there. For the next week, I searched deeper. I found hotel bookings, restaurant bills, even hidden bank transfers, money moving from church accounts to Adam, then quietly paying for Linda's little secret life. They'd tried to hide it, but I was an accountant. Numbers always tell the truth. But as I searched, I found something else, something I didn't expect. My mother's name showed up too. She'd been using church money for her own expenses for years. A little here, a little there, hard to notice unless you looked closely. But once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I sat back in my chair, the room dark except for the glow of my screen. I had the truth in my hands, truth that could destroy Mother's power at church, truth that could stop her cruel words forever. But I hesitated. Was I really ready to break her like this? The decision came to me, quietly, on a cold afternoon. Linda came to my door, her eyes wide and afraid. "You're looking into me, aren't you?" she hissed as soon as she stepped in. "What are you talking about?" I said calmly. "Adam said someone was digging through the church's books," she said. Her hands were shaking. "Amy, please, please stop. If you tell, everything will be ruined. Mother, the church, me." I looked at her. For the first time, I really saw her, my sister, who had always hidden behind Mother's skirts. "Then tell me the truth," I said softly, "right now." And she did. The words tumbled out. How she met Adam when he was just a young seminary student, how they snuck around behind John's back, how she found out she was pregnant, how Mother had found out too, and made sure Linda married John quickly to cover the scandal, how Adam stayed close, hidden behind sermons and smiles. I asked the question that scared me most. "Mother knew, this whole time?" Linda nodded, tears running down her face. "She paid Adam to stay quiet. She used church money. She said it was to protect the family name." My phone rang then, cutting through the thick silence. I saw the hospital's name on the screen. My heart squeezed tight. "Hello?" A nurse's voice. "Miss Anderson, your mother has been brought to the emergency room. We believe she's had a stroke." When I hung up, Linda was frozen in place, pale as the snow outside. We drove to the hospital in silence. At Fairview Southdale, Mother lay in intensive care, hooked up to beeping machines. Doctors said the stroke wasn't too bad, but it might leave her weaker than before. They found an anonymous letter in her bag. Someone had told her secrets to the church board. The shock had broken her. Church leaders gathered in the hallways, whispering. Adam stood among them, face pale, eyes darting. He slipped away before Linda or I could say a word. That night, in a plain waiting room, John finally spoke. His voice was raw. The DNA test came back. He looked at Linda. "Tommy, he isn't mine." Silence fell like a heavy blanket. Linda covered her face and sobbed. David, who had rushed back from his trip, put his arm around me. His warmth felt like a small island in that cold room. Linda confessed everything to John, about Adam, about Mother's cover-up, the hush money, the lies. It all spilled out like dirty water. Later, when Mother was moved to a regular room, I went in alone. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Amy," she whispered, her voice soft and scratchy, "burn it all, the papers, the books, no one needs to know." I shook my head. "No, Mother, it's time to stop hiding." She didn't argue. Her eyes closed. A single tear rolled down her cheek. By the end of that week, the church board called an emergency meeting. They read out the evidence: Adam's betrayal, the stolen money, Mother's secrets. Adam was fired on the spot. Mother lost her place in the church she'd ruled for so long. Linda was cast out too. The local paper ran the story for days. Scandal at historic church. Neighbors whispered behind curtains. But for the first time, I felt like the truth was stronger than all their gossip. After everything, Mother couldn't live alone anymore. John and I agreed on a nursing home with the best care. Linda fought me. She said I was heartless, but when she saw the truth, Mother's weakness, the cost of years of secrets, she didn't fight long. The day Mother moved in, she held my hand with her cold, thin fingers. Maybe, you were right, she said softly. I squeezed her hand. Reputation built on lies always breaks, I whispered back. For once, she didn't argue. Months passed. John divorced Linda and got full custody of Tommy. He visits sometimes, Tommy giggling by his side. John always thanks me for telling the truth, but really, he's the one who saved Tommy from a life of lies. Linda tried to visit me, begging for money. I looked at her and saw not my sister, but the ghost of a woman who spent too long hiding behind Mother's pride. I can't help you anymore, I told her gently. She left with tears, but this time, my heart didn't ache. David and I left Eden Prairie. We bought a small, bright house 2 hours away. We're starting the adoption process now. Paperwork spread across our kitchen table next to our coffee mugs and half-eaten toast. This Thanksgiving, there is no fancy china, no big house full of secrets, just us, and soon, maybe, a child who will grow up free of all this old pain. Outside, snow falls softly, covering the ground in white. I like to think it's covering the past too, giving us a fresh start. David asks, "Are you happy?" I look at him, at our warm kitchen, at the future waiting for us. Yes, I say, truly happy. And this time, I know it's real.